What's going on YouTube? Run and Gun Sports back here with another video. Today is our Washington football team news review video. Got a lot of interesting news to talk about as far as the Washington football team. A team that, was a playoff team, but didn't seem that good of a team in general. So we're going to talk about, the struggles of the team. We'll talk about the strengths of the team a little, not as much, because really the reason that we make these videos is to talk about what we think these teams can do in the next seasons to have, better seasons and why they might have had a bad season. With that being said, some other news. We currently will no longer be doing our college football news videos now because the NFL season is preseason is starting in 6 days. So no more college football news videos. And our next video that we'll release will be on Tuesday, hopefully, and will be the Hall of Fame game preview between the Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that is why there will be no more college football news review videos until next off season. And we'll see how this next football season goes. It's gonna be a wild ride, and got preseason in less than a week, and then it's on. So we're excited for the football season to be here. And if you have not already, and you're excited about the football season as well, follow our social media pages at @runandgun_sports on Instagram and at @runandgunsports on TikTok. And of course, subscribe to this channel, share any video with your friends, and leave a like down below. And with that being said, let's get right into the video with the Washington football team. 7-9 record. 5 of their losses were to non-playoff teams. Not a very good look. And I think the reason that they lose the games, really that they should win, is because they did not have any leader of the team. The lack of leadership is a huge problem with that Washington football team. And I think that they were going back and forth between quarterbacks, and that was very, you know, excuse me, that was not the best, thing for that team, especially a very young team that they had. It was an extremely young team, and the lack of leadership did not help that team at all. They needed what I think is just more of a steady leader at quarterback, and none of their guys really struck me as leaders. And, Alex Smith, had a crazy, crazy season, right? But even though he came back from a terrible injury, I just think that his mind wasn't as team oriented as it was. I think that he was focused on himself a little more than he would have if he had not suffered the injury, is which I don't blame, because the injury was just so severe. And obviously he's retired now. I think that he'll make a very great quarterbacks coach in the NFL, and I don't know if he will go into coaching or whatever he decides to do. He's deserved his great NFL career, but I just think that the lack of leadership, especially Dwayne Haskins, the young guy that was supposed to be the franchise quarterback of that team, and obviously failed. Just a real embarrassment of a draft pick so early on, a bust, and they let him go, and just for some stupid off the field decisions. And it happens sometimes, but it's tough to see with your supposedly star franchise quarterback. And I don't think Dwayne Haskins was meant to be a star quarterback in the first place, but doing this irresponsible stuff off the field, I think that he definitely proved my case correctly. And so, moving on a little bit now, they lost the five non-playoff teams by a total of 42 points, 8.4 points per game. Lost in the wild card to the Buccaneers at 31-23. Gave the Buccaneers the second closest game they had in the playoffs, second to the NFC Championship game versus the Green Bay Packers. So there's positives there. And we're going to go back to talking about this whole quarterback situation. And so obviously Alex Smith, Dwayne Haskins were your two guys at quarterback. And if you look at the numbers, none of these guys' stats are good at all, and they're terrible. And Alex Smith, 1,500 yards, 6 touchdowns, 66.7 completion percentage, and 6 interceptions. Those aren't great stats at all. The only thing that is okay is the completion percentage, but just not good stats anyways. Dwayne Haskins, 1,400 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 61.4 QBR, 5 interceptions. So just really terrible numbers is as lightly as I could put it. But if you compare him to Dak Prescott, the best quarterback in that league, I think that you'll see that these guys are not meant to be a starting quarterback of a team. Dak Prescott is meant to be a starting quarterback of the team. We'll compare it to the 2019 season just because of the injury Dak Prescott had this year, missed a lot of the season. With Dak Prescott, 4,902 yards, 30 touchdowns, 65.1 completion percentage, and 11 interceptions. Dwayne Haskins and Alex Smith combined, 3,031 yards, 11 touchdowns, 64.05 completion percentage, and 11 interceptions is terrible. 11 interceptions is really bad just from two guys, and Dak Prescott needs to work on not turning the ball over as much. Granted, it was 2 years ago. He's fairly young, but that's really bad, and he beats him in every single one of those categories. And 11, if you have the same amount of touchdowns as interceptions, that is just never a good thing, and really just proves that none of those guys should be a starting quarterback in this league. And you look at the NFC East. You have the Cowboys. They have Dak Prescott, but outside of the Cowboys, you have the Washington football team. They don't have a franchise guy at quarterback right now. You look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Don't really have a franchise guy right now. Is it going to be Jalen Hurts? Is it not? We don't know. And then you look at the New York Giants, and we saw, as we talked about in our last video, I'm not a big fan of Daniel Jones at all. I don't think that he'll do anything good there. So, really, other than Dak Prescott, the NFC East has no good quarterbacks at all. And I think that really is why that conference struggles a ton. There's no leadership on those teams. They all seem to be fairly young teams, but just no leadership from QB. And Dak Prescott's fairly young and has some great leadership. And I think that really helps that team out big time. And the Cowboys are probably the oldest team. They do have a lot of young players, but probably have the most veterans on the team out of any of the teams in the NFC East. And Dak Prescott really serves them well with his leadership abilities. And I don't think there's any more that Jerry Jones could ask for from Dak Prescott. I mean, he's a coach on the field, and I'm a huge fan of Dak Prescott. I think he's a really good guy, and I think that he'll have some great years in the NFL, and he's got a great receiving core, and I want to see him come back healthy from the horrific injury that he suffered last year. So moving on, that was the Washington football team's weakness. That was their weakness. This is their strength. We told you we talk about the strength a little bit, and that was the defense. The defense was a very great defense. They ranked 4th overall in team defense, number 2 in pass defense, and number 13th in rush defense. And so that's why the Washington football team made the playoffs. They didn't have that defense. They probably lose almost every game if they don't have that defense. The defense helped them a ton of games, and there's a very impressive defense put together by Ron Rivera. And a lot of those guys are fairly young as well, so they're going to have some good defenses for years to come, and I'm excited to see how that team does all together. Moving on to the free agency, the Washington football team picked up Adam Humphries, wide receiver from Tennessee. They picked up Ryan Fitzpatrick, quarterback from Miami, from the Dolphins. We'll see how that goes. And, do I think Ryan Fitzpatrick's a franchise quarterback? Definitely not. He's just too old and never really been good enough to be a franchise quarterback. If he was, he probably would have stayed on one of the 14 teams that he's been with. So, Curtis Samuel, though, wide receiver from Carolina coming over. Huge pickup for Terry McLaurin. The college teammates together did very well. And Curtis Samuel's fairly young, and I'm a big fan of him. And I think that they will do very well together, especially with his college teammate Terry McLaurin. So that will be a good matchup and combo. They lose Dwayne Haskins, quarterback to Pittsburgh, as I mentioned earlier. And this is one of the worst losses that they took all season. Losing Ryan Kerrigan, defensive end to the Philadelphia Eagles. And I just think that you don't want to ever lose a star player on your team. But if you do not want to lose it to a divisional team that you face 2 times a year and a younger guy as well. So they'll be facing them from years to come. And I think that Ryan Kerrigan is going to make that team regret that they let him go to the Philadelphia Eagles. So Eagles, huge pickup there for them, but Ryan Kerrigan's a huge loss for the Washington football team. Alex Smith retires, and moving on to our 2021 projection, I think that they can make the wild card, really. Just the defense, but the quarterback play is going to be a lot, and they're not going to be able to outscore teams. They're going to have to win with the defense yet again. So we'll see what happens with the Washington football team. That will wrap it up for today's video. If you guys have not already, please leave a like down below, subscribe, share this with your friends. Thank you guys so much for watching.